Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we're revisiting the PlayStation VR2 1 month after its original release. Now that the dust has settled and the honeymoon period is officially over, have opinions changed? Was this product overhyped? Or did it get a lot of undue hate? We'll go through all of that, everything this headset did right and wrong, and the overall impact it could have on the VR industry. Now there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by my sponsor Kiwi Design. They currently make my favorite Quest 2 Elite strap, which comes in multiple different versions. You can add an extra battery pack, high quality headphones, or even both. They also have other products like Valve Index style hand straps, and they just introduced a brand new RGB stand. Your controllers and headset magnetically connect. There's a charging indicator so you'll know when your headset's ready to go, and there's plenty of different RGB color options available. There's a link to Kiwi Design down in the description, and don't forget to use discount code Mateo311 for 5% off and to help support this channel. Over the past 30 days, I've discussed why the PlayStation VR2 deserves the hype, detailed everything it did right and wrong, discussed why you might not want to pick one up, dreamed up my ideal PlayStation VR2 Pro, and even contradicted some of the BS people were saying about this headset. This topic has been extremely diversive, to the point that I barely want to read my comments sometimes. Throughout those videos, I've been called both a PlayStation VR2 hater and a Sony fanboy. But even after dealing with all of that, I still really want to see your feedback in the comments down below. I'm always trying to understand the different mindsets out there, and the best way to do it is by going through contradicting opinions. Well, let's take a good hard look at this headset right now and see where it truly stands. I'm not going to pull any punches and get right into it. My opinion has declined somewhat. My hype is already gone for this headset, but it's not for the reasons you may think. I've made peace with the headset's graphical anomalies, the cable doesn't bother me at all, and in truth the PSVR2 did revitalize my love of VR, but I'm already out of games to play. Horizon Call of the Mountain was fantastic, but I see no reason in replaying it. Gran Turismo 7 is a fabulous racing sim, but that's just not my style of game, and I'm not really in the mood to revisit Resident Evil Village from inside VR. So after a quick run through Switchback, I'm out of games. Everything else I've already played on another headset, plus I'm absolutely addicted to 2 exclusive titles right now. One is for PSVR that officially releases next week, and the other is Ghost Signal on the Quest 2. Now in truth, this is only a VR enthusiast problem. I expect those who are happy with their PSVR2 purchase are still enjoying the hell out of this headset. I'll gladly be jumping right back on once new titles like Sierra Squad or Firewall Ultra release. But in the beginning, I believe the PSVR2 had some unforgivable issues. Now don't get me wrong here, every headset has its own unique issues, and VR continues to be a battle of various concessions. There is no headset that is perfect for everyone, as we all have different preferences, sensitivities, and wants. What may stand out as an insurmountable issue for one individual can easily go unnoticed by another. My largest sensitivities are latency and clarity, with things like the screen door effect, black levels, and glare having much less impact on me. The first thing when I started up Horizon Call of the Mountain was that dreaded Mora effect. It gave an absolutely horrible first impression, but it quickly faded away into the background. There's also the pixel ray that does give off the screen door effect under certain conditions, an extremely small sweet spot that causes everything to look blurry if the headset isn't sitting perfectly on your head. And finally, some games on the PlayStation VR2 suffer from the worst reprojection I have ever seen. In my first hour or so with the PlayStation VR2, I thought I would never be able to get past these issues. At its absolute worst, everything looked unfocused, the screen appears to be dirty, and the whole world warps when you use smooth turning. Now that warping caused by reprojection is game dependent, and so far it's been really bad in Horizon, but almost non-existent in other titles. Switching to snap turning was a quick fix, and after a little bit of practice, I'm able to easily get into and stay in the headset sweet spot. And as bad as the Mora effect initially was, I barely ever see it when actively gaming. Now I completely understand if some people can't get past these issues, and honestly in 2023, 7+ years since the release of commercial VR, we shouldn't have to deal with this. As I stated earlier, all VR tech has its own pros and cons, but in my opinion, Sony could have made better choices. It feels like the cons of the OLED panel surpassed the pros. Regardless, I still thoroughly enjoyed my PSVR2 experience once I got past these initial issues. Unfortunately though, there are still others facing some ongoing controller issues and had to return their devices. I can't speak too much on this as I haven't experienced it myself. And a final but smaller issue is this headset's lack of versatility. There's no support for things like 3D Blu-rays or YouTube VR. I personally don't care much about this, as I'm focused mainly on gaming, but it's always nice to have additional functionality. But speaking of games, the PlayStation VR2 has definitely raised the bar. There's not a single title on the Quest 2 that can stack up against Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil Village, or Gran Turismo 7. And while PSVR definitely has some winners like Half-Life Alyx, Lone Echo, and Asgard's Wrath, these games are years old now, and new PSVR exclusives are extremely rare. Horizon is a next level built from the ground up VR experience. While it does play things a bit safe, safe, it has an absolutely fantastic production value. It's the type of game VR needed to stop being associated with cartoony casual titles, and having top-tier games like Resident Evil Village and Gran Turismo 7 ported from flat screen into VR gives users the much bigger gaming experience that they've been looking for. Unfortunately though, after this, everything else is basically a Quest port. Sure, the graphics may be improved, but it's still the same title. So now we just have to wait and see what else Sony has in store for us. And that brings us to our next topic: was the PSVR2 overhyped? Obviously, you'll get different answers depending on the community you ask. There are some people who just overhype everything, and others ready to hate on anything that isn't their preferred platform. If you were a PlayStation VR1 fan waiting for an upgrade, or someone getting into VR for the first time, this headset should have blown you away. There were definitely some who were disappointed, as they just couldn't get past those issues I previously mentioned, or the game lineup just didn't have what they were looking for. Overall, the hype level was perfect to counter the unjust hate this headset received. So in true internet fashion, it was a little overhyped and a little overhated. It was far from perfect, but an exciting step for VR. Unfortunately though, the headset's future is still uncertain. I remain hopeful that the PlayStation VR2 will be a huge success, driving developers back to PC VR and PlayStation VR, allowing them to create larger and higher quality games. But in order for that to happen, this headset will have to sell significantly better than the original, while battling a recession, lingering hardware shortages, a market where the PS5 has a much smaller share compared to the PS4 when the original PlayStation VR launched, and steep competition from Meta, who's releasing the Quest 3 later this year. Plus, as good of a title as Horizon Call of the Mountain was, it's hard to call it a system seller. So it's definitely an uphill battle for Sony, and the next question is, do I still recommend the PSVR 2? If you currently own a PlayStation 5 and want to get into VR, or you're a previous PlayStation VR 1 lover, then yes, I highly recommend it. If you don't game on PC and you're interested in both console and VR gaming, a PlayStation 5 plus PlayStation VR 2 combo is a great deal. I'm sure enthusiasts will also want this headset for access to its exclusives, but it becomes a much harder recommendation if you're a PC gamer who wants to get into VR for the first time. In that case, a Quest 2 or a Pico 4 would be a smarter and cheaper option, as you'll get unmatched versatility with the ability to play both mobile and PC VR games at half the price. Now, this topic is a bit nuanced, and there are definitely some more specific use cases as to why you might prefer one headset over the other, but that's just a little recommendation paraphrasing. If you're currently looking into VR, confused, scratching your head, and you don't know what to get, my recommendation is to wait until the Quest 3 comes out. The upgrades will undoubtedly make it a better purchase than the Quest 2. There's a good chance it'll launch with some exciting exclusives, and the Quest 2 might even get a price drop. But I want to know what you guys think. Would you recommend a PlayStation VR 2, or should people wait for the Quest 3 or something else? Let me know down in the comments right now.
And that was today's video, brought to you by my dad, Mateo311. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here,
Consider subscribing.
consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing. We'll see you guys on next time.
We'll see you guys on next time.